is together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe in our communities, in ourselves. Obviously, that's the new strategic theme within Rotary. Take advantage of that every chance you get to remind folks that's what we're all about. It's a beautiful phrase. Holger here back in January mentioned these three things. Ask Rotarians to create opportunities that strengthen their leadership. We've been talking about that several times through these last couple hours. The idea of getting our committee chairs. Somebody mentioned just a minute ago, where do they find out about this? There's a lot of information on My Rotary about every one of the positions we have. There's a lot of information in the Learning Center. I sent out a few days ago, or John, I asked her to send out each one of your clubs, and you can see on there how few, it's kind of like the number of people that contribute to the foundation. It might be the same number because it's almost identical. Roughly, some clubs are up in the 50% range, but a lot of clubs are in the 30-35% range of people who have a My Rotary login. Please put that near the top of your priorities this year. That we ought to get that resolved. That is the main Rotary International website. There's tremendous resources on there. There's the Learning Center on there. There's the Branding Center on there. There's always current information and good news that's going on around the world. Try to make a habit yourself of trying to look at that regularly. But definitely we need more of our people to start utilizing that and taking advantage of it. Help put service ideas into action and improve the lives of those in need. Those are just some general things. He'd also like for each one of our clubs to have a strategic meeting each year. When you ask this question, what should our club look like in 5 years, and what steps should we take to achieve that vision? What value do we bring to our members? And you always have to have a champion. I think back to the who's serving as membership chair, who's serving as foundation chair, who's serving as the service chair, and so forth. You know, that needs to be somebody that will champion those programs. So as you're out and about in the clubs, try to identify who's an up and coming emerging leader. You know, David's planning on having an emerging leader session at the district conference. You know, we're talking about how we're going to handle that, all that now, literally. But it's still something we're going to deal with one way or the other. We want to try to identify emerging leaders. And most good solid leaders, as you know, because obviously you were in that group, are people who are champions. They love Rotary, and they're willing to put a lot of effort into Rotary. Select new members carefully. There's no wrong age to become a Rotarian. That's a big shift, because it used to be that if you go back to the old Rotarians, they'd say, well, you can't join Rotary until you're 30. And that was a standard that Rotary maintained. That standard is no longer applies. So, in fact, in the last Council on Legislation, Rotaract clubs were raised to the same level as traditional Rotary clubs. So that's something I'd like for all of you to give thought to. Around the world, most Rotarian clubs, Rotaract clubs, are not university-based like most all of them around here in our district. They're community-based. So it's a club formed by largely 18 to 35-year-olds, but they're, who knows, in the end, they may stay in Rotaract. I mean, that's a possibility too. So, but think about that. Are there communities, certainly Kansas City is one, where we could have a legitimate 1 or 2 community Rotaract clubs? And some of these other larger towns out there in the rural areas, I think could perhaps start a Rotaract club. Interact clubs is a natural feeder. I know several of your clubs have those in the high schools. Can we do more? Can we get more schools to sponsor Interact clubs, which feeds into RILA, which feeds into Rotaract, which hopefully will feed into larger numbers in Rotary long term. And then the effort to eliminate polio. It's still our focus. We still got this match from the Gates Fund. For every dollar the Rotary raises, they double it. So the leverage of that is tremendous. October 24 is World Polio Day. I know some of your clubs made a nice effort this past year. The golf tournament that we were scheduled to have, where the proceeds were going to polio in April, the one we've still got scheduled now, rescheduled for late August at Tantera. That money, of course, didn't come in because we didn't have the golf tournament. So we just need to refocus on polio. That's going to be an effort that we're going to try to do more from the district on, but I hope that each one of your clubs will look at that in a more serious way. Okay, David, what's the next slide? Yeah, become familiar with this. I think it's good to be able to talk in terms of this. Like I said earlier, I think we have a lot of our clubs that are pretty much operating like they did 40 or 50 years ago. They do the same trivia. They do the same everything. They do the same fundraiser. They may not even have a fundraiser. You know, in other words, the culture is pretty much the same as it's always been. I think if we can start using these sorts of, make this part of your vernacular when you're talking to these people. You know, what are you doing to increase our impact? How are we expanding our reach? I mean, I think using those kind of terms are good, and I would encourage you to really try to fit this sort of thing into your talk. Okay, David. We've already touched on this. So the Learning Center, there's a course in there for you. I think most of you have taken that. Please do. I think you'll pick up some information. When I used part of this slide for the pets, I asked all the club presidents to go in there and do the club president basics. Well, guess what? A lot of them have not. So please communicate that course is available. Courses on communication is available in there. As Kim said, there's a lot of courses on foundation. There's a lot of courses on membership. There's an outstanding new course that just came out in April on youth. And I would encourage everybody to read that. Because, you know, unfortunately in our world today, there's probably never been a greater time where somebody could do something inappropriate with youth. And this really gets into the basics of how we're supposed to handle that, how we should do the reporting and so forth. So please take a look at that and have your presidents take a look at that. You know, we do a nice job in this district over the last 6 years since it started in 2014 with RLI. Ruth, who's on here, is going to be our new district secretary, and I were in the first class when it came to the district. It's made a big difference to me, you know, in my Rotary walk, what I learned in that through those 3 sessions. And a lot of what I've learned, I never learned in my club. And I'd be willing to bet that a lot of our members out there have not. That's unfortunate, but the fortunate part is we've got this tool now, and it's important to get your people, as many as possible, going in through this. Then the second step is you've got to take it back to the club and apply it. And believe me, I know from firsthand that that doesn't always happen. We were going to, and I still hope to incorporate REAL into the upcoming August district conference. But there again, with committee chairs, leaders in the club, take advantage of that training. Rotarian magazines, I don't know how many of you take the time to pick that up and thumb through it and read an article or two every month. Those who are retired maybe have a little more time. Right, Kim? and don't have a 12-year-old around. But hey, by the way, my 3 little granddaughters, 10, 6, and 4, are at my house this week. And so I've got an extra dose of what it takes. And I appreciate all you with young children, what you're working with there. Anyway, the zone webinars, there's a special one that's coming up. When we're talking about membership, one of the things that we're going to be looking at ties in with that RI convention one that Mark mentioned earlier, is new club models. You know, we're going to be studying that in the district next month. So, you know, there's just a number of different things on the horizon, tying back to we have to have younger members. You know, we have to get people who can't meet at lunch. They can't get away from work, etc. In our club. So we have to look at some new models if we can't put them in the tradition model. So please, David, I think we've got your email on the screen. Thank you. Anyway, it's good. It's kind of neat. One of the ones I think we can have a good opportunity to use this year, or for all you creative people to think about, is how do we develop a cause-based club? That's one that we'll be talking about. A cause-based club would be a group of people that are really fired up about a particular subject. Let's just take the environment or something like that. And they're all focused. They already have kind of a loose network or something, and they might want to join Rotary and take advantage of all the things we can do, and really throughout the world, particular to the environment. I think Rotary is moving more towards becoming more and more environment focused. So that was probably a fairly easy one. But there's plenty of other causes out there that we might be able to tie a Rotary Club into. So when you run across something that sounds exciting to you, say, wow, maybe we could turn this into a Rotary Club. Toastmasters, some of you are, I know David, for instance, is very involved in Toastmasters. There's a natural relationship that's forming between Toastmasters and Rotary. Again, it started out as how can we generate better presenters? People are more comfortable with presentations, you know, with younger members, with Rotaract members, and now it's grown into everybody. So there's several people in the district that are involved already with Toastmasters, but look in your town. Towns of you know, a decent size often have a Toastmasters club already, and there might be a way to work together. There is a way. Rotary's already put it together, but also maybe a source of some new members for Rotary. Okay, David. I sent you this today. I don't want to go through it all, but please take a look at it. It's a page of this sort of thing, opportunities to strengthen our clubs and grow Rotary. So some of the things we touched on, but this is a kind of a deeper bullet point. Please look through that. As you're setting your personal goals for your areas this year, please take some of this sort of thing into consideration. How can you have a greater impact on the club presidents and thus the club this year? How can you have a greater impact on the elections of officers for next year, so we can start turning around some of the clubs? By the way, one of my other pet peeves is not having an election in the fall. Would you please start in July with talking to the president and talking to the board about having an election before Christmas? We're trying to focus on president nominees. Some clubs call them vice presidents, and we want to do a better job of finding the right membership and the foundation chairs. That should be done this fall. Those people will take office next July. But a lot of our clubs do that and have done it, and it's always been a part of the Rotary tradition. But some of the clubs have got away from it. And if they're in your area, please start confirming when they plan to have an election, and then start talking to them about some of the things we talked about, like finding the appropriate chairs that can help. Okay, David. You know, I don't know how many clubs actually have used this approach. I have not seen that many, but I think it's something that is good and something I'd like to see our clubs focus on this year. Every month has a theme in Rotary. You can see the list there. So the beauty of this is that you can really focus on this through some fun things within the club, some extra little 5-minute vignettes with during the meeting, introduced, you know, some subject matter about. It's a great way to show off all the things, the amazing things the Rotary Year do. This would be a perfect way to enhance your public image. Back to Kirby's presentation, through utilizing some of these themes. If you'll go on to the next one, you'll see them. Whoop, maybe I got that in the wrong order. Try the next one. There you go. There's a calendar. I also sent you this today. And each month has some reminders that I'd like for you to talk to the presidents about, the board about. I hope you'll be involved with the board this year and see how the clubs really are functioning from the inside, rather than just going to the meeting. We've always asked you to do one visit per quarter, but more than just participating and sitting there and watching the program, if you could get a little deeper involved with the president and deeper involved with the board, I think it'll be a more fruitful experience overall. One of the things you'll notice on there on each month, besides the theme that I just referred to in the last slide, is the 15-minute a day thinking about big Rotary concept I have. I know we're all busy, and I asked the presidents to do this. I know we're all busy and we got lots of things on our plate, and I fully appreciate that. I have found over time that if I can just take 15 minutes of quiet time to focus on what I need to do, in this case, I'm asking it to be Rotary. Perhaps it's your church, perhaps it's something else that's going on work. But if we can actually set up a habit and develop a habit of using 15 minutes a day to just think on bigger Rotary. I ask the presidents to do that. In other words, not thinking about, oh my goodness, who's going to be the greeter, or who's going to be the Happy Bucks guy this week, or what am I going to do about a program? I mean, hopefully a lot of that stuff is already taken care of by somebody besides the president. If not, then you need to help them find some champions. But that president and yourself, I'd like for you to think about bigger Rotary. What can we do to do some of these things that are listed throughout this calendar, for instance, or all the other things we talked about, like membership and all the other things we talked about, like foundation and public image. What can I do? How can I deliver that? Because I know that's not easy to always just talk to the presidents about this. Some presidents are knowledge about it. They're unfortunately just a placeholder. Nobody else wanted the job, or they're in a little club with 10 members, so about every 3 years they end up being president. I understand their circumstances, but if you can think about how can I deliver this, keeping in mind that every club, we have a standard we'd like to achieve, but each club has a little different culture, and we have to work with that. I mean, after all, we're all volunteers, and those people in the club are good people and they're volunteers. So, but at the same time, if you can take a little time to think about, you know, hey, I'm going to go to see Weston this week, Tim. You know, what's going on with Weston? I mean, how's it look like the foundation's doing? What's going on with the membership? You guys get those reports. You have access to those reports for your area. You can look at. Obviously, there's a lot of confidential information in there, particularly the foundation stuff. But those reports are available to you, and you can see what's going on and who's doing it. And while I mentioned earlier, I'd really like to focus on Rotary Direct and getting more of this 67% who aren't contributing. I think it's also important to keep an eye out for potential major donors and bequest society members and some of those big dollar people that have the ability, the financial ability. It's just that they need some help, and several of us would be happy to help in a conversation like that. Or we have people from Rotary International that have specific jobs to do that. So there's ways, but just keep your eyes open in terms of what's going on in the club. What can I make an impact? And I just like the idea of taking 15 minutes a day and focusing on that while you're drinking your coffee on the deck, which is beautiful this time of the year. What's next, David? Keywords. We've got about 10 minutes. Maybe we'll end about 5 minutes early. I appreciate all you being here. I shared these keywords with the pets group, and you know, for me, they're just, you know, they're just positive. They're exciting, passionate, commitment, innovate, flexibility. I mean, all these things can fit in different ways in our Rotary lives, and I think the more that we can think in terms of innovate, for instance. You know, there's a lot of terms about change now. We mentioned some ways we can change and need to change, like membership and attracting younger people. But maybe the right word is innovate. How can we move our club from A to B? How can we start them? You know, momentum's the big secret. You know, we're not going to change all these clubs this year, or maybe not even next year. But if we never get started, we're never going to get to first base. And maybe even the Royals will play this year. But I hope that if you can think of champions, I love champions. If we can identify more champions out there in the clubs, we're going to have a great year. And we're going to have great future years because they'll become leaders of our clubs.
Don, have you addressed your visits yet? Or have we taken a poll of whether clubs are meeting yet? Are you going to try to delay that, or how are you going to play that?
Great question. I am delaying it. Yeah, you would have had it a couple months ago normally, but it, we've really there's so much uncertainty. Here's what I decided to do. None of them in July, and but I need, if you can get some feedback to me, each one of you, because we have some of the information, but the easy thing to do is each one of you just send me an email in terms of what the clubs are doing. Are they meeting live at their normal times? Are they meeting Zoom? Are they doing a hybrid? Are they not meeting at all? If you can do that, that would be helpful, because district governors are required to get around to all the clubs. My intent had been to do some after the first of the year anyway. But I can only do that by relying more on you guys to spread the word and that sort of thing. So, some of these things that we'll have in our AG calls and so forth, or some of the emails, just please look at them, take them to heart, use your 15 minutes a day to think about them. But to answer your question, it's a work in process, primarily because of this whole COVID thing. But I will be out there, and I look forward to being out there. What other questions anybody got?
Don, I have a question about our club visits, and right now at our house, we're still being very careful about any public outings at all. So I'm reluctant, even with a couple of my clubs that are meeting in person, to start doing club visits until the situation is different from what I think it's going to be for the next few months.
That's understandable. Certainly I want you all to feel comfortable. I mean, that's one of the things Rotary has stressed, is that we want you to feel comfortable. Safety is first and foremost. And as every situation and every community and so forth is a little different. I've certainly noticed, and in Kansas City, that people are much more mask oriented and that sort of thing than they are in St. Joseph. And fortunately, we've had very little of it. But no, I respect that, Marilyn. If what I would ask you to do, and we've normally set this, and I want to talk about this more. If we can keep to our first Monday of the month Zooms, the next one's coming up is the 6th. I would like to do that. I want to talk more about this, and I want to talk more about the reporting, because I'm working on changing that a little bit in terms of more feedback from you all. But we'll get into that. But I think if you and I know you will do this, but in lieu of the public visit, a phone call or a Zoom with the president to talk about these kind of things that we're talking about, or maybe your foundation chair. I think everybody's comfortable with that.
Thank you.
You bet. Anything else? Folks, thanks you so much. I'm excited. It's a unique time, but just keep in mind that slogan, when Holger chose it, of course, he had no idea that we'd be faced with this, but Rotary opens opportunities could never be more factual than now. So if you would just keep working and start making early contacts with those clubs and start looking at their public image stuff and see where, well, one thing that needs to be focused on pretty early too is where they are with the current grants. We did do that extension, but will we really be under the gun if most of the clubs take that 3 months to get that report in? So if you can take care of that, that'd be great. And take a look at that checklist That's what I tried to do by putting that together in terms of the monthly thing, just to some reminders. Start talking about the November 7th. And it's understandable that, to Marilyn's point, that some people may say, well, gee, I don't think, who knows? And we don't know. And we don't know, for instance, what Kansas City is going to do. And we're already starting to think, well, can we do this online? Or can we do this hybrid? That's always a great event, and it's a successful money raising thing. So we got to keep track of that. We don't want to lose that perspective. Maybe we need to, if it comes down to, we'll obviously make this decision before the last month, but if it comes down to it, maybe we have to postpone it till April. So, you know, all those are possibilities. If you have some thoughts, please share them. Because we just don't know. And in between, we've got the August 23, 24 Ozark event still on the books. We're going to be doing a survey in the next week or so about how comfortable people are, or whether they will be attending. So there'll be a chance to respond to that. But this is just such unusual times that just look at it as an opportunity. You know, if we can't get to the clubs like we normally did as often, can we just do more on the phone and on Zoom? Can we bring in some people, either whether the club's meeting by Zoom or meeting in person or meeting a hybrid? This thing has opened up a world of opportunities out there for programs. Bring in some people from the outside via Zoom. Anything else, folks? Thank you so much. We got 2 minutes left. Thank you, guys. Have a great rest of the week, and I'll see you July 1.